Welcome to Satsang.
Hello, Vishrant. Can you please talk about the topic, the recipe for success in spirituality?
That recipe for success. Okay, so I was very lucky. I was very fortunate that I came across mentors when I was 19 years old that trained me in how to be successful in the material world. Those mentors were working for an organisation called Focal Universal. And Focal run encounter groups called the Greatness in You seminars, which were a 4-day encounter group, having a look at yourself and taking yourself apart, removing limiting belief systems. But they also ran BMTs, business motivation training. And I'm not too sure exactly how often they ran them, but it felt like it was monthly, a weekend. And I did 9 years of those. I loved it. Just loved learning about myself and other people, how things all worked in the world. I felt like I'd really begun my education after I left school rather than when I was at school. I practiced what these teachers taught me. I put them into practice and went into business. And by the age of 28, I'd retired. I didn't have to work anymore. I learnt the recipe for success and I applied it. And it turns out that the recipe for success in business and in sport and in music and in art and in any endeavour you do, higher consciousness, is all the same. It's not different. The first thing you do is you find somebody who knows the way. Somebody who has higher consciousness, preferably someone who's enlightened. And you become their student. And as a student, you listen to what they have to say and you follow their instruction because they know more than you. Unfortunately, Australian males and females, for that matter, tend to like to think they know. And so they try doing things without advice, thinking that somehow, even though they've never trained in it, they're going to be good at it, whether it's business or higher consciousness or anything else. Truth is, you get a mentor, someone who knows the way, and you learn from them. This is the beginning. And so I was lucky enough to have mentors in business and mentors in personal growth. And then at the age of 28, about the time I retired, I got a spiritual mentor. His name was Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. And I listened to him and I followed his instructions. I already understood the recipe for success. But the beginning is always to get someone who knows the way to help you. Trying to do it by yourself is a waste of time. It's just arrogance, actually, thinking you know something that you haven't ever been taught. Now, along the way, I learned that totality is important. If you want to be successful at anything, you have to be total. And if you are total, the chances are you're going to win, you're going to succeed. Totality is probably the most important part of any endeavour that we adventure on. How total are you, or how partial you are at anything, is going to determine your success or failure. all of the people that I know that were successful in business were total in what they were doing. And the same goes for all the people I know who've been successful at higher consciousness were total in their endeavour to raise their consciousness levels. Totality rules the day. Now, if we look at what totality means, it means you have a disciplined mind. You have a mind that doesn't stop. You have a mind that doesn't give itself excuses for failure. As a matter of fact, any excuse for failure pretty much guarantees it. You have a mind that basically does what it says it's going to do. It doesn't stop. It doesn't give itself excuses to get out of anything. It makes it so. This is the totality that works in every endeavour in life if we want to succeed at, including higher consciousness. And so a disciplined mind sets a time to meditate every day and then makes that so. A disciplined mind doesn't give itself a choice. That is what discipline is. No choice. People who are flaky, people who give themselves choices to opt out, well, they don't make it. How can they? It's not going to happen. It's up to you what you do or what you don't do. What became obvious to me in personal growth was that I'd had a heap of belief systems that were limiting, that had been put into me by my parents, by my schooling, by my religion, by my government, and they needed to be changed because I started observing my mind quite closely when I was young. And I recognised that these belief systems weren't actually real. They had just been programmed into me or brainwashed into me. And so I started removing them. The first two that I challenged was worry. We think we need to worry. And victim-orientated thinking, which quite often is combined with worry. And so I started challenging my victim-orientated thoughts. I started looking at, well, what turned me into a victim? What belief systems was I holding that when the expectation on those belief systems wasn't met, I became a victim. I went into resistance to life and created suffering for myself. And I started removing those belief systems because I was not interested in volunteering to be a victim of life, of anyone, of anything, and hurting myself. People think, other people hurt you. No, they don't. You hurt yourself. You hurt yourself because you turn yourself into a victim. You volunteer to be a victim. Nobody's hurting anyone. People can do things that you don't like. People can do things that might hurt you physically, but you're the one that has to be a volunteer of it. I started to see life as this is what is, rather than good, bad, right, wrong. This is simply what is. I stopped being a victim, and my life improved immensely because I wasn't creating suffering for myself by going into resistance to everything that I didn't agree with. This is a part of the recipe for success in higher consciousness. Victim orientation is basically you not taking responsibility for how you feel, because you make yourself feel. The world doesn't make you feel, you make yourself feel. This level of maturity doesn't really allow for higher consciousness. This level of maturity keeps you locked in lower consciousness. So it's up to you. You're creating your reality by the way you think. It's all up to you. My spiritual teacher, Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, taught me how to meditate, taught me how to self-inquire, taught me how to practice the way of the heart, taught me how to accept life as it is, taught me how to fly. Because I followed his instruction. I didn't arrogantly think that I knew better. I followed his instruction. And this is the key. The key is really finding someone who is further ahead than you in whatever, and then following their instruction, because they've already proven that what they do works, and following it to the letter. So when I used to listen to my teachers, I had an attitude. I listened to them like my life depended upon it, because it did. Are there any questions? Any statements? Any challenges to anything that's been said here today?
The first question is, does having a nice and loving personality have anything to do with success in spirituality?
Depends on whether that personality is just selling out to get along or whether it's actually genuine. If you sell out to get along, you're not going to get too far. You've got to stand your ground. Success demands, well, in business it demands that you stand alone in resistance. In higher consciousness, it demands that you stand alone in surrender. People who sell out to get along, to get the acceptance of others, twist themselves into knots that are so false it's not funny, just so they can be accepted by others. This is one of the things that needs to be removed. And when you look at why people look for surrender, look for acceptance outside themselves, it's usually because they're not accepting themselves. Somewhere inside they don't feel worthy. Somewhere inside they just don't feel enough. And so that comes down to the basis or the beginning, the foundation of higher consciousness, self-acceptance. Do you accept every part of you? Are you able to hold every part of your psyche in tenderness? Or are there parts that you're judging heavily, beating yourself up over, creating a separation in your own mind as a result between the part that's judging and the part that's probably now hiding? Self-acceptance is the foundation for higher consciousness.
Next, we have a question from Mihir.
Hello.
Hey, Vishrant. My question was slightly unrelated to the topic, but it was something about I've been using weed in my life as a reward system, and when I don't use it, I feel like I'm very unmotivated, and I feel like there's no point of doing all the work. Also, like my parents are very unaccepting of it and judge me for it, but the periods I haven't gone like 4 or 5 months without it, I feel like they're very dull. So, do you have any advice?
What do you use as a reward system? I missed the word.
Marijuana.
Oh, marijuana. As a reward system, that's a good one. Okay, I do understand marijuana and how it works and why it works and what it does for you. Unfortunately, they call it dope for a reason, because it doesn't. It actually takes you into dreamland. Marijuana, like opiates, is a dream drug. It takes you into a dream zone, which is relaxing, and that's why you like it, because it feels good. But it takes you further into lower consciousness. It doesn't take you into higher consciousness. And so if you're actually into higher consciousness, any drug that takes you into dreamland, like marijuana or an opiate, is in the way. It's actually headed in the wrong direction, which is a shame, but it's the truth. Yes, marijuana relaxes you, but it takes you into a dream world, takes you into lower consciousness, doesn't take you into higher consciousness. And so I can't support people using drugs that take them into lower consciousness if they're interested in higher consciousness. Of course, if they're not interested in higher consciousness, I really don't mind. But when students come along and they want to go to higher consciousness, I can't endorse the taking of marijuana or opiate drugs because I know what they do. They just take you into dreamland. They take you further away from higher consciousness. And so marijuana, the way you're using it, sounds like you're using it as a medication, probably to relax you, probably to make you feel better in the tension of the world that you live in. But it's definitely not going to raise your consciousness levels. It's going to lower them, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Vishrant.
Yeah, thank you.
The next question is from Marcus.
Hey, Vishrant.
Hey, Marcus.
Hi. So I had a realization today, and I would like to get your view on it. And the realization was that this whole time I've been trying to change something about myself, which was all these thoughts in the background throughout the day. And I realized that it's not about changing that to no thoughts. It's about like accepting that those thoughts are there.
Okay. So do you want an opinion on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Acceptance is great. Witnessing the mind and seeing what the mind's up to is also great. As a matter of fact, it's where we begin because, well, if we don't see what's going on, we're really in the dark. And so you develop this witness that just witnesses the mind, but some of the things that you see, because you remember what's being witnessed, some of the things you see are obviously detrimental to you and possibly to others. So those things you can change. You can accept that they're there. There's no problem with that. That's the first thing you need to do, accept what's there. But if they're detrimental to you, then it's not a bad idea to change them. And so what I saw when I was very young was that I was a victim-orientated thinker, which I inherited from Mum, and it was detrimental to me. It wasn't doing me any favours. It was creating suffering in me. So I changed it. And that took a couple of years. It didn't happen overnight. I had to stop supporting victim-orientated thinking, and I had to start removing belief systems that created victim-orientated thinking. But I think that was one of the best things I ever did for myself, ever. Because I started that when I was 19. By the age of 21, I wasn't victim thinking anymore. And I just look back at all the years I didn't suffer as a victim as a result of changing that way of thinking. And so I did move to change, but I accepted it first. And if I failed, I accepted that too. I tried again. Acceptance is really important, but if you notice something that's detrimental happening inside you, why would you leave it there?
Right. I've realized that by watching my mind, I'm very competitive, even like unconsciously competitive. And I want to know how to change that.
Well, we all are competitive because we went to school and we got taught how to compete with people to get better marks, be better at sport, be better at this, be better at that, art, whatever. We were trained to be competitive, which is about as ugly as you can get, really, because what it did effectively is created so much low self-worth in kids who weren't making the grade because someone was beating them. It just wounded the hell out of our children, and we still do it to this day. We put them in an environment that is highly competitive, teach them how to be little soldiers, so they can go off and fight one day. And this is why I homeschooled my children. I wasn't interested in putting them into a competitive environment where they learned how to win at the cost of others. So look at it, you study it yourself. You study what is competition. Understand it completely, that competition itself is about as ugly as you can get, and it's against the heart. It's against love, because when you're truly in touch with love, you don't want to beat someone. You don't want to make them feel less than by beating them. You actually want them to be your friend. So you want to play a game where everyone wins.
So that means no more chess.
Well, look, if you want to get a degree, you have to pass the tests. If you want to get a diploma on the wall, you have to pass the tests. But you've got to look at it inside yourself. Look at it, what it does to you and what it does to others when you win and someone loses, or when they win and you lose. How beautiful is that, or how ugly is that? And this is the schooling system we're involved in. It just damages children.
That was a great answer. There's one more question, and that in the morning is when I have so many dreams every night, and in the morning I often, I have an alarm, I snooze it, that goes on for an hour, where I'm just in bed, like half dreaming and half awake, but I want to be able to just snap into reality at the very beginning of the day. How would you recommend that I do that?
Okay, I understand the question. What I did to overcome that is, you wake up too early in the morning and you go, it's too early, I'll stay in bed. And then you go into another dream stage, So what I did is, any time that I woke up, even if it was too early, I'd get out of bed. I'd get out of bed and I'd make my bed, because when you get out of bed and you make your bed, you're moving into doing something that's real. It takes you right out of dream. If you get out of bed and just sleepwalk to the bathroom, well, you're still dreaming. But if you get out of bed and you make your bed, the act of making the bed takes you out of dream.
Okay.
And that becomes a habit. But it becomes a habit because you make sure you do it every time.
Okay.
You've got a habit, and the habit is to stay in and dream. To break that habit, you have to do something different to what you've been doing, and the something different is you wake up, get out of bed, make your bed.
Okay. How about, because I have a partner, and when I wake up, I don't want to disturb her. So
Okay.
I was wondering if I can I do something different? Like, I have an electric kettle, so I could just like pour some water and just start warming up my water. Would that work too?
Well, you could get dressed or have a shower. I mean, anything that you have to do in the real world will take you out of dream. I suggested making the bed, but if there's someone still in the bed, that's a bad idea. You kind of roll them out and make the bed, right? No, that doesn't work so well. No, you get out of bed yourself and you go and have a shower or whatever you do in the mornings, get dressed. As soon as you move to doing something physically that takes a little bit of effort, you're moving back into reality.
Okay. Yeah, because even in the shower, it's very hard for me to come out of the dream. So what I started doing was, when I would catch myself.
Where do you live? Where are you from?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah, it gets nice and cold up there in the winter. See, if you get in that shower and you turn the hot shower on, you have the hot shower, then suddenly you turn it off and you turn the cold on, I bet you'll get present really quick. Extremely quick. You'll be so present and so fresh, it won't be funny. But you've got to fool yourself. You've got to fool yourself. You've got to pretend you're not doing it while doing it. You turn the hot off and you turn the cold on, and then you stand there and scream a bit.
Okay, right. A lot of screaming for sure.
Well, it definitely brings you to clarity.
That's right. I will start implementing that.
You tried keep continuing to dream in Boston when you turn the cold on in winter. I bet you can't.
Correct. All right. And, now, what about the reverse? What about going to sleep, having all those thoughts when I'm trying to go to sleep?
Okay, so I'm actually, when I'm telling you these things, I'm telling you things I used to use. I'm not telling you abstract ideas. These are the things I used to use. I liked being fresh in the morning, so if I get up, I would have a cold shower after a hot shower, and it would just freshen me up for the whole day. It would be a great start. As far as going to sleep at night, I found that if I tried to go to sleep when I couldn't go to sleep, it just caused pressure. So what I did is I just allowed myself to stay awake. And eventually, because I wasn't putting any pressure on myself to go to sleep, I'd eventually go to sleep. I just made it okay to not sleep. So I just lay there with my eyes open or my eyes shut, and I just stay in bed in the acceptance that sleep wasn't there just yet. There was no resistance to it, in other words.
I see.
It's the resistance to it that keeps us awake.
I got you.
Because we're tired, we want to go to sleep, we can't, but we're pressuring ourselves to go to sleep. That resistance keeps us awake.
Beautiful. Thank you, Vishrant.
Thank you.
The next question is from Indapol.
Hi, Vishrant. Hi, Vishrant. It's Interpol. So it's such a pleasure speaking with you. It's unbelievable. I did your session that you just last had, and now this one, and can't believe I'm actually talking to you. So my question is this: deep in meditation, you know, there's definitely times when I have had flickers / glimpses of getting to a place where the mind is really silent and having almost the perception of myself just becoming part of ether, just not in my body. And so that in and of itself has been, I'm not sure the right word, you know, phenomenal in a way, because I was there, but I wasn't in my body, in my physical body. And so having said that, you know, you've talked a little bit today about following instruction and having a mentor. So is there a simplified way of kind of markers along the road that where you can, which again, we're so used to with our belief systems of kind of always gauging our progress. Where are we on this path? And so where do we start off with a road marker, if you kind of understand the gist of my question?
I can give you the road marker straight up. When I was 28, I started meditating under the instruction of my master, and I found no mind. Now, sitting in no mind, which is what you're talking about, I got to see that I was there, but the mind wasn't there. I got to see that there was no thinking, but I was still there, which brought about the question in my mind, who am I really? Because up to that point, I believed I was the mind and I was the body. Then all of a sudden, I'm here sitting in no mind, there's nothing here, and then later, the mind comes and goes, it remembers. I was there, but there was nobody there. There was no thoughts, not a thought, but I was still there. So if I'm not my thoughts, what am I really? And that's the beginning, that's the marker. So you've already hit that point. Now the quest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Now the quest is to find out what is it that's there, that's always there actually. Even when the mind is talking, it's still there. What is this that is simply there and is aware? And so that's when my quest for enlightenment began, when I realized that I wasn't the mind, that I could be here without thoughts. What am I really? Who am I really? The curiosity got to me. And of course, the curiosity killed the cat.
Yes, certainly. And this happened to me very recently, a few weekends ago. And So that weekend was really somewhat of a daze, because I very heavily had that feeling of no mind and not being in my body. And overall, with work and following Osho's teachings, I, have looked at my triggers and my patterns, and I still have some highly resistant patterns that, I'm working, trying to be a witness for, and looking at those things, and perhaps, working, just observing, witnessing them, not really trying to suppress, but
This is what you're talking about now is what led to the first awakening. And the first awakening happened for me in 1987, 2 years after chatting with Osho. He blew my mind. But 2 years after chatting with him, I was involved in groups called Enlightenment intensives, which were 7-day and 14-day groups where you'd just ask the question, who am I, to a partner. It would be answered, the answer would be discounted, then they'd ask the question back to you. And I was doing this on the foreshore, walking along the river by myself. I'd been walking from 6 in the morning, and it was about 10 o'clock when the first Satori began. And what had happened was I'd so relaxed in asking the question and then discounting it, because it's a Zen methodology of self-inquiry. And the witness that was witnessing me asking the question became me. I was it. And then I became the universe. No I any longer, just the universe. And it was using Osho's methodology of self-inquiry while witnessing the self-inquiry. By myself, my mind was relaxed. I wasn't trying to get anything. I wasn't trying to get anywhere. I was absolutely relaxed. I was prepared to self-inquire all day long. I was just doing it for fun while I was walking along the river. It changed my life, because now I knew what I was, because I came back to ego-based reality, but now I knew what I was. And I knew I wasn't a body, and I knew I wasn't a mind. I knew that the body and mind was simply a spacesuit that I was, pure awareness, was using to be here.
Okay. And then did it stick then? And so basically after that experience that you had, and that was it, then you basically had reached, per se?
I had, but I came back to ego-based reality. Some of it stuck, but I wasn't aware of that at the time. My third eye opened, my crown chakra opened, my throat was already open, my heart was kind of semi-open but not open enough. The crown sticked, the third eye sticked, and it gave me a sense of being everything. But at that time I didn't realise that was Satori, because I was still looking for the wham bam thank you ma'am Satori, where I was the universe. The Buddha on the path, in other words. And so I didn't recognise that I was in Satori, in a milder form of Satori. And that went on for the next 11 years. And I hadn't recognised what it was. It was only in hindsight later that I got to see, Jesus, there was something there the whole time and I was missing it. My mind was missing it because it was looking for something bigger. And then I went to an Advaita Vedanta meeting with a guy called Isaac Shapiro, and I was very sceptical of him, but I went into the meeting anyway, down in Denmark, which is south of Perth in West Australia. And the moment he walked in the door, I woke up again. I became the universe again. Every particle being love. Now that went away as well, but for the next year, I had 1,000 Satoris. And then in another retreat with another awake teacher, I found myself as truth, and it has been like that ever since, 22 years now. And so there's no sense of a somebody being here, but there is a sense of being everything at once and nothing, if that makes sense. My mind flatlined about 21 years ago, my mind flatlined.
Wow. And what you're describing, and, I'm hesitant because I, have doubt, with my mind. just because this is relatively new for me. But definitely, I felt like I was everything all at once, but not tangibly, in that experience. And so, does this? So you're saying in retrospect too, it seems like you had that experience, you recognized it only down the line, but subsequently you had multiple such experiences. So I guess we wouldn't say that it was stuttering, but it came and went, and perhaps obviously the frequency for you increased. Do we just keep doing what we're doing then? Do I just keep doing what I was doing? Because when this happened to me, I was doing a meditation work or a meditation retreat, semi-retreat, half-day kind of a thing. We started off with one of Osho's chakra meditations, then we went into his death meditation, and then it was the very first time that I had done the Who Am I as well, with Osho, in his voice. And that is what resulted in that experience for me. And I'm not quite myself. I'm a physician in the worldly world, so I'm very, very mind oriented. But over the last 3-4 years, I initially thought I had no heart, but I've discovered I have a heart, and a much more heart now. So suggestions for what to do as I keep hopefully progressing without being goal oriented per se, I guess.
Okay, so what happened for me in the 12 months where I had 1,000 satori's is I realized that awareness kept coming back to my mind because I kept contracting every now and again over things that weren't working in my life. And I got to realize that these things that I was contracting on were obstacles in the way of enlightenment. Anything that creates a contraction in you, anything that creates resistance in you, can attract awareness back to the mind, away from itself. Because when you're awake, awareness is aware of itself. The witness is aware of itself. And that is, in the beginning, in the early days, I think that's a fragile position. And so the mind needs to support what is being found. If it contracts and goes into resistance, awareness, even if it's on itself in the early days, is likely to come back to the mind itself. And so the work, if you want to call it work, is to undo the mind, to make it equanimous, so it doesn't constantly get disturbed. Does that make sense?
Yes. And interestingly, it's been really poignant in the last week or two since this has happened. It's almost like you're suggesting, and my experience has been that the mind is, it's the mind itself seems to, I have some resistance. I think even after this, it's interesting. I have resistance in terms of the points where I contract my triggers. For the most part, prior to this, I was a little more mellow. So I don't know if it's a weird mind game now because I had that experience. And I'm not chalking it up to, oh my gosh, I had that experience and I achieved some major thing. It's almost like I'm afraid and I wanted to downplay it on some level and just be like, okay, that's good, just carry on. But because that happened, I feel like, my mind is being harder on itself, like when I get triggered or if I go into a mind pattern or something. So I guess I just need to get back to, like what you're saying, just undo the mind and really work hard again on, and I'm using the term work hard, but be aware of that and just relax back into it.
Okay. So when you had the Satori, it's like an invitation. It's an invitation to come home, because beingness is home. It's what we really are. And so you've received the information. Now you need to do the work to get everything out of the way so you can come home. But you're a doctor, which means you have a professional persona. Now in that professional persona, I'll bet you don't contract too much because you remain professional. Now extend that professional persona to every part of your life. It's not personal anymore.
Wow. Okay.
That's actually what I did, because after I got out of publishing and walked around Australia for 4 years, I went back to school and trained as a psychotherapist and a naturopath. And one day I just realised that when I was in with my clients, there was none of me there. There was no story of Vishrant there. I was just there for my clients. And I realised that was very peaceful. That was really nice, just to be there for someone else and not there with my trippy story. And so I extended that to my whole life. I got rid of the story of Vishrant, the story of contraction, the story of resistance.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's a great place. That's something tangible that I think I can definitely.
Well, you already have the professional persona, so you just got to extend it outside your work.
Okay. Okay. So I will do that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, look, you're very, very welcome, and I love what's happening for you. I really do. Keep in touch.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question has been written by Brian. You say that silence is the highest teaching. Is this the silence that is found when we rest in the still and empty background in which the mind appears?
It is, but there needs to be an understanding of what I'm talking about. Someone who is ready for silence. They don't need a teacher to say anything. They may need the presence of the teacher, but they don't need the teacher to say anything anymore. And so Mona teachers, which means silent teachers, are enough. For most people, they need a teacher that talks so they can understand how to allay the mind. But the silence is the highest teaching, but only those who are ready for silence are ready for silence. They are the ones who have already mastered their own mind and learnt surrender.
The next question has been written by Robert. I am a seeker of the truth. How can you help me to be enlightened?
Robert. I remember what Osho said. He said, "I'm not your dear old uncle. I'm here to murder you. How can I help you?" Robert, if you're a student of mine, my intention would be to help you die as an I, so you can know yourself as your true nature. But you're not a student of mine, and so I can't help you a great deal. I suggest you find someone who's awake and go and hang out with them. And I know what their job is. It's the same as my job, to help people learn to die so they can find themselves as truth.
The next question has been written by Naratama. I was diagnosed with cancer in 2017. I've heard Osho say that cancer is a blessing. I see how any moment the body can cease to be. There is apprehension about the unknown, but I remain with the witness. Although there is some fear, I stay with awareness. Can you please comment?
Yeah. You need to be willing to die. It's that simple. You see, the reason Osho said that it is a blessing is because he understands that it's an opportunity for surrender, unconditional surrender to the inevitability of the loss of life. That opportunity, if taken, puts you in the right place for enlightenment. Unconditional surrender is something the mind needs to learn, and it learns through practice. Because you have cancer, you can practice over and over again until you master the mind and become absolutely okay with death.
Next, you have a question from Mihir.
Hello.
Hey, Vishrant. I was just asking, how do I deal with my parents trying to control my behavior and always judge me for like what I'm doing, and they're not accepting of it. And this is regarding the marijuana, and they always like think of it in a negative light, and it makes me feel really guilty as well of doing it. So
How old are you?
22.
Move out of house. You're 22 years old, man. You know, your mummy and daddy are still telling you what to do. I'm sorry, but you've put yourself in the line of fire. Now you either wear it or you don't, you know. If I was you, I wouldn't be hanging around my parents. Of course they're going to give you a hard time. They've got judgments about it. They think it's a stepping stone to maybe a heavier drug, you know, like a gateway drug to heroin or something. They've got all their fears running. They want the best for you. So of course they're going to give you a hard time. But you are responsible for being there. You've put yourself in the line of fire and you're copping it and you're wanting to know how to stop it. Get out of there. If you were 16 or 17 or maybe even 18, I'd have a different story. But you're not. You're 22, man. You're old enough to be married and have kids.
Yeah, thank you.
The problem with marijuana is it demotivates you. So there might not be much motivation for getting out there and getting your own place. It's a demotivating drug. It makes you feel relaxed, but it doesn't. It kills motivation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like when I'm using it, I don't try and use it and then do something that requires motivation. I like use it as a reward system. And yeah, if I don't use it in that way, I just feel unmotivated all the time.
Yeah, look, what's the bet? You're addicted to it. What's the bet? And the story that you're telling yourself about a reward system is just your addiction hiding. What's the bet?
I think 100%.
It's good to be honest with yourself, but unfortunately the addicted part of the mind is rarely honest because it wants what it wants and it doesn't care how it gets it. The addicted part of the mind can't really be trusted to tell the truth about anything. One of the first things you learn when you train as an addictions counsellor, and I did, is that addicts don't tell the truth.
Yeah.
and you know it's true. You know it's true. Because the addicted part of the mind does whatever it can to get whatever it wants.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to have some peace from your parents, move out or give up dope. Your choice. Stop blaming them for just being the way they are. They're just trying to take care of you, really.
Makes sense.
Their judgments about marijuana might be wrong, but so what? They're just trying to take care of you. Because they care about you, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice chatting.
Yes, definitely.
The next question is from Tyler.
Hello, Vishrant. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you, Tyler, yes.
Okay, yeah. So normally I come in with like I'll try to think of a question beforehand, and I didn't do that. But so what the last guy was just saying, talking about like the drug use and all that, like I struggle with that same problem, and it's like obviously in the way of waking up because it's just one more thing for the mind to cling on to. So
It's not just it's not just clinging. Marijuana makes you feel good. You know, it does. It relaxes your mind. It makes you feel good. It takes you away from stress. It gives you relief. It's a medication. It's absolutely a medication, and it works. Unfortunately, it's in the way of high consciousness because it takes you into dream. It's simple. What you're using works, but it demotivates you, takes you into dream. And so there's a downside to it.
yeah, so thanks for answering that. And no, like you're definitely right about that. It's like it it's like the addictive part of the mind doesn't even want to acknowledge that it does take you into dream, and it's like hard to stop dreaming while you're doing those things. So
Yeah. Yeah, I used to smoke a bit of dope back in the late 80s, and I found that the group of people I was hanging out with, they were always smoking dope. That's how they'd have a puff of dope, a joint, a bong, whatever, and then they'd chat about anything, you know, but everyone would be dreaming away. And I realised the only way for me to get away from the drug was to actually get away from my friends, because every time I saw them, they'd want you to have a smoke with them, you know. It was difficult. And I saw the light. I saw that, hey man, this is not raising my consciousness levels. This is demotivating me, and it's keeping me lost in dream. And it feels good. So that was the good bit, the feels good. But the problem is, I was wasting my life dreaming. I was living in a dream, not in reality.
yeah, so it's good to come back to reality, right? And yeah, thanks for all of that.
I wish you the best, my friend.
All right.
The next question is from Interpol.
Hi, Vishrant. It's myself again. Actually, you can call me Indy. So just a few more things that popped into my mind.
What does Interpol mean? What does Interpol mean?
Interpol, so it's actually, so Indra is the god of power.
Aha.
And so it means, you know, that I have the power per se. And so that's what that means. But I was born in England, and basically as soon as Indiana Jones came out, Interpol became Indy.
Ah, so Interpol means power.
Yes.
And what does B-A-I mean? By.
Ball. So that's me. Actually, it's my name's Interpol Ball. Ball is just my surname.
Ah, I see. Okay. So power, that's a cool name. We should put Prem in front of that. That would be powerful love.
Yeah, actually, that would have been good. It would have been good, you know, but I actually took sannyas last year, about a year ago in March of 2021. And my sannyas name is Prem Jyoti.
Say that again.
Prem Jyoti.
Jopi. What does Jopi mean?
Jyoti. 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 It means light.
Ah, the light of love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's your path, darling. Your path is love, which is the way of the heart. That's a heart. That's a heart name. That's yeah, definitely a heart name. And being a doctor, you'd be very good with the discipline to some degree, but I believe in the marketplace it takes two wings to fly, not just the discipline, but also the way of the heart, love. And when we have both wings working, we can fly high.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing glimpses of that as well. As I had said earlier, I joked with some of the Sangha that I do meditation with, that, as I said, I never thought I had a heart, extremely mind-oriented nature. And on top of it, I'm an administrator. So I'm definitely all about get it done, get it done, get it done. This is the way it needs to be done, get it done. So it took me several years just to be able to start dropping that. And for the most part, it's interesting. Well, it's because you are who you are, that you recognize some things that, in a workplace, it's easier to drop things than it is when we personalize things for ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, my sensitivity and my heart has definitely increased to a large degree.
Would you like it
And
to increase more?
uh-huh.
Would you like it to increase more? I can tell you how.
Oh, absolutely, please.
Okay, so openness counts for everything, because it's when we're open that we perceive love. When we're closed and defended, we cut ourselves off from it. And all the defense systems are in the way. They're obstacles in the way of the heart.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I started to find heart, and I was a businessman. I owned a publishing company that had 35 staff members, and it was really go, 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 go all the whole time. Even though I'd retired, I was still overseeing to some degree. And I started to find heart, and I realized that my business and the way I behaved in my business had a lot of closures in it, a lot of defences in it, because I had 30-odd salesmen working, professional salesmen working for me, who were always trying to do something weird. And so I walked into my companies when I was 33 years old, and I gave my company, which was a multi-million-dollar company, I gave it to my staff and walked out.
I read that about you. Wow.
Yeah.
That's guts.
I knew the recipe for success. I didn't think that I'd ever have to. I always thought that I could start again in something if I wanted to. So you say it's guts, but I also had a lot of confidence in myself. And I took my shoes off and I walked around Australia to find my heart and to get back to reality. And I walked around for 4 years, basically as a bum, having the time of my life, because I didn't have to be a somebody. Because as a publisher, I was a big somebody. I drove a Rolls Royce and lived in a penthouse in an expensive suburb. And I had chauffeurs and I had cooks. I had everything. And it was just lovely to get back to reality when nobody knew me, walking around Australia as a bum. The best time of my life, being a nobody going nowhere. And then I realised...
Sounds so good to be a nobody, anonymous, just nobody.
Absolutely. But then I found my heart, and my heart affected my mind in such a way that I just wanted to help people. And I realised that all I was good at was business. And so I went back to school and trained as a psychotherapist and naturopath, so I'd have tools to be able to serve people with.
I love that story, because the profession I'm in has been very rewarding in the worldly sense, all of that, but it's frankly become empty over time. And I have been told, and I recognize it to some degree in myself, that I think I'm good with people. And I think I have some innate, naturally given ability to be able to talk with people and to be able to be, at least with the just casual feedback I get, that it would, people have enjoyed talking with me. So I would love to do kind of similar to your path, not that I'm emulating your path by any means, but have had those sort of thoughts like, man, I wish I could just drop everything. My kids, one's in college and one's in high school still, so I have a few things that I have to accomplish before I can kind of let go and maybe become a bum somewhere, which
Do you work in a hospital, or do you work in a private practice?
I actually work for the prison system.
Okay.
In California.
So can I talk to you about that? It's like
Sure.
we are pushed to hurry, get it done, get it done, get it done. We're pushed and pushed and pushed. And as a result, we lose the feel of service. If we really want to be in service, we have to give people time. We have to listen to them. And so we have to stop the rush. Even if it costs some people not seeing us, at least the people who do see us are getting service. Does that make sense?
Right. Oh, absolutely. Those are the most rewarding times when I've been able to do that.
You get better results because people need to be heard. And when you're listening to them deeply, they feel loved as well.
And I'm feeling that too. I've noticed my sensitivity has increased. I can feel I mean, I don't know technically, how you feel energy, but I can feel that energy back from people when I have those kinds of interactions with them.
So I used to book, as a psychotherapist, I'd book an hour-long session. As a naturopath, I only did 20-minute sessions. But during those 20 minutes, they got the totality of me. During that hour, they got the totality of me. There wasn't a rush to get rid of anyone. I would listen and listen and listen, because that's service. If we're rushing, we're in service to the prison system, not in service to the people we're actually serving. And there's a difference, because the people we're serving are humans. The prison system is just an organisation.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. I absolutely hear you. And yes. Somewhat more of a technical question now. So when I first became involved with Osho and really my real first exposure to all of this meditation, and it's always been with Osho, happened in April of 2020, and did a series of meditations at that time, and then spent some time, about 3 months, doing Nad-Brahm meditation and Kundalini. And so that was very helpful. And then, as you know very well, there's multiple stages, and then you get to the last part, which is the sitting in silence. So I found that I can sit in silence and can actually have moments of no thought, and that's fine. So is that would you recommend doing any formal meditations? Is there a role of continuing to do Kundalini or any of those kinds of things, or is sitting in silence as part of sort of my daily practice? Sitting in silence is something I do. Anything else on a more formal level that you would suggest doing?
Look, it depends where you're at on the path. Everyone wants to be further ahead than where they're at. That's just human nature. But wherever you're at, sitting silently is wonderful if you can stay with reality. Most people can't sit silently and stay with reality. They start dreaming. And Nada Brahma is a beautiful meditation. I used to run the Nada Brahma classes at the Rajni Centre in Fremantle when I was a sannyasin down there. And I just loved it. Just beautiful stuff. But whatever works for you. So for the first 10 years of meditation, I used to love to watch my breath. And I'd sit in a half lotus position and watch my breath. But I'd keep my eyes open at a 45-degree angle so I wouldn't go into dream. The problem is dreaming. You see, when you're dreaming, when you're thinking, you're not in meditation. Your awareness is on thoughts. That's not meditation. Meditation is when your awareness is on what is real. And so I'm in meditation all the time now because my awareness is on what is real all the time. My mind is flatlined. But when I walked around Australia to get back to reality, to get back to meditation, I took my shoes off so I could feel my feet. Because when you can feel your feet, you're actually meditating because you're with something that's real. So I used to do walking meditation, which is watching the breath and feeling your feet. Now, if you're watching your breath and feeling your feet, you can't think. If you do, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose touch with reality. And as a doctor, you would have been trained to live in your head for sure. And so now it's time to reclaim reality from the dream that you found yourself in. The matrix of your own mind is now a prison. And you can get out of it by practicing something that's real, getting out of your head and into reality. And that is meditation. If you're aware of the sounds around you, you're in meditation. If you're aware of the sights and the sounds, you're in meditation. It's only what you think that is not meditation. That's dream.
Got it. Got it. And I'm sorry I'm taking up so much time. Music. So is there a role of music? So my sensitivity to music and being able, really, what is the role of music in this process? So I can get very deeply into music, but I don't know, is that a dream? Is that, I'm not sure necessarily what I'm asking you.
It can take you in the dream, it can take you into the present moment because it's real, you're listening to it. But what I used to like to do with music was dance. And I'd throw my totality into the dance. And what that helped me do was clear my energy, because I used to pick up a lot of energy from my clients in psychotherapy and naturopathy. I'd pick up a lot of density, and it used to cloud my mind. And so after work, I used to dance, and I'd really put my totality into the dance because I love to dance, and it just cleared my energy. It threw everything out. And so music to me has always been a dancing phenomenon. Look, I must go. It's way past time. It's way past. I got people ringing me telling me it's time.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your guidance.
It was nice talking to you, really is. Do keep in touch.
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you for Satsang. Good to see you brave hearts here today.